Alrighty, another video. We're gonna talk about jellyfish. Fish Kibble has a jellyfish, yay. Created this in Zbrush and Maya. The animation is horrible, I know that. Needs overlap, needs a bit of timing. It looks pretty bad. What are we doing here? So here's a blend space in Unreal Engine, just blending between the idle and the swim animation. It looks like poo, I know, but the mesh looks pretty cool. I like the way that it deforms at the head. The tentacles are not great, but seriously, I'm not going to animate thousands of tentacles, and animating thousands of tentacles is not fun. I didn't animate those tentacles individually. I'm using controls, which I'll show in a second, but they really need more overlap. But yeah, so I just quickly want to show what I did here with the jellyfish. Let's start in, where we're going to start, Zbrush. So I started with a sphere. Fantastic, you got a sphere, yay. Looks like poo. No, it doesn't, looks awesome. This looks like poo. So here's me just starting to use some of the brushes, right? I'm just going to step through some of the stuff. I'm not going to do a time lapse or anything like that. What do we have here? It almost looks like a UFO, so you can see the growth or whatever, where it's going, where it's heading. And there finally we have, I'm only focusing on the head here, right? Only focusing on the head. Alrighty. And I ended up with this guy. You can see here it's only 1,944. Oh, I pressed something I shouldn't have. 1,944 polys. Cool. Something I can import. Doesn't look like much, doesn't look like anything really. Let's jump over to Maya. So I imported this guy here, right? And then I spent the whole morning. What did I do? I spent the whole morning doing something. Oh yeah, that's right. I spent the whole morning animating this guy using mesh, morph targets. And then what happened was, I wasted my time, because I had like 5 or 6 morph targets in there to try and move this guy, and I had a whole bunch of tentacles in there, and I spent a whole bunch of time doing this, and in the end I just wasted my time. Why? Because to get static, I wanted to import it as a static mesh. To get this guy into Unreal Engine using the static mesh morph target whatever workflow, so that I could use instant static meshes, because I wanted lots of these initially. I wanted a whole sea of them, and then I realized to get this guy in static mesh with morph targets is going to be almost impossible, because I required quite a few morph targets, and then I wanted them to linearly interpolate between the end of one morph target to the beginning of the next. So I mean, even if I did get that working, because remember, if you get something like this into Unreal Engine, a static mesh morph target, it's going to project onto onto UV sets, each of your morph targets, X, Y, and Z coordinates on 3 UV sets. So doing that for, I don't know, 6 morph targets was, that was going to be insanely crazy. So I don't see that working. So I had to go with the skeletal way, meaning I'm not going to have seas of jellyfish here. And I'm okay with that. I'm not going to cry. Alrighty, so I brought this into Maya. That was from Zbrush, and I'm just quickly going to step through some of it. Let's see, where am I now? I'll just quickly show some progress. Progress is always good. This might look like poo. Who knows? And here I've got some tentacles in. I have 4. So that was the plan. You can just see they're just basic cylinders with a little bit of taper at the bottom. Alrighty. I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit, see what we have here. I started rigging it up. I don't think it's, yeah, it's just rigging it up, putting the skeleton in, as you can see there. So that's the skeleton I went for, but what I wanted was, I wanted one set of controls for all of these arms here, right? So I wrote a whole bunch of scripts, just once-off scripts. They're nothing to be overly proud of, but just to hook these up to the controls. It's really, really simple to do, to hook up a control to something. But I wanted one control where I could just, and they're also all oriented. Let's see if I can just show the orientation here. Yeah, that's not useful. Let's undo that quickly. What was I saying? Oh, yeah, something. So the orientation is extremely important. I want them to be oriented all towards the outside, so that when I rotate, for example, whatever the bend axis is going to be, for example Z, I want them all to rotate like outward, so that you can get that bellowing effect or bubble effect or whatever. So you'll see they all share that orientation going outwards. So let's see if I choose the Z rotation here, what happens is they all lift up. So that's what I was talking about and going on about here. Let's jump on. Check the next guy. Have I started with the control? So here I started with the control system. Not hooked up. No animations here. They're not hooked up at all. So these were the controls I decided on. This is for the higher level. This is for the higher level bones up here. This is lower and lower. So I decided to go inverse based on size. Don't know why, but it's cool. I can do that. Whatever. I'll show you what I mean in a second. Maybe not. So this is what I ended up having. So for this, I want to jump over to my other guy. Let's see what I have here. So he's got these controls. So now I've hooked up these controls. You can see each one of them are hooking up to. So if I rotate this guy, let's see the Z. So this is the upper bone there for all of them. This is the second level, and this is the outer level. And then they were just skinned. I didn't spend a lot of time skinning them up, because they're not going to be rotating that much anyway. And you can see I'm still missing stuff here. I'm missing 2 arms. So let's jump on over to the latest one. If I can find it. It's just a little bit of progress. See what we have here. So here I've started including some animation. So there we go. The skinning for this guy. You can see it's still a little bit broken there. And then I think eventually I fixed that. Let's just jump to the latest one. So then I included some basic animation here, and then I also included an all mover control so that I can move this guy around on his own. And for the tentacles, it's pretty much the same as this guy. The tentacles, you can control them all at the same time, or you can control them individually, you know, if you wanted to. They just all hook up to bones underneath here that you don't see because they're hidden. That's basically the control system, so they're just hooked up to those bones there. And then I just created some basic animations here. If we look at, let's look at the idle animation. I'm just gonna hide the skeleton again. So you can see it's doing a little jump. It's because it's on the wrong time frame here. So that was the idle animation. Now you can see I'm still lacking a lot of, I need a lot more overlap here, right? Because the tentacles look like poo, but it's okay. I can always come back, change it later. And this is the swim animation. So the idea is I'm going to be exporting this to Unreal Engine, create a blend shape, and then blend between the idle and swim animations using some variable. Now the reason it's hooking, not moving there, is because it needs to be on time frame maximum 40. So that's the swim animation there. And you can see the things that are actually moving are these guys here. the controls, rotate, and then it rotates the skeleton. That's the idea, right? This is then exported to Unreal Engine, which is here somewhere. And then that's what we saw just now. So these animations here. Ooh, clicking on something I shouldn't have. The animation blueprint. Then there's the blend space, which I showed you earlier. Blending between idle and swim. You can see it moving faster there, moving slower. And then this is in game. So now he's got changing colors, random colors. He's swimming around. So the idea is going to be he's going to be sharing the same sort of thing that the other critters are doing. They're just going to be swimming around there to take up some space, which I'll talk about a little bit later in the next video. And that's it for this one. Thanks.